How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be talking about welding gauges. Now, I didn't learn how to use a welding gauge for probably 3 years, and it's because there's so much to them. You know, you got bits that pull here, bits that come out here. You know, there's different dimensions all over it, and you're just looking at it and you're thinking, no, I don't know how to use that. So you tend to stay away from it, but that's where I come into play, and that's where I'm going to help you. So come a bit closer, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm not even sure how I used to struggle with this, because it is super easy how to use a welding gauge. Right at the top here, you got inches and you've got millimeters. And all this does here is measure your leg length of your weld. If you pull it back down, you can see a couple of dimensions showing at the front. If you keep pulling it around, you can see it's going in degrees. So you've got 30 degrees, 35, 40. If you look at it from that angle, you can see there's a slight bevel going around there. All this is for is when you're prepping plates, you're checking angles of a weld test on a bevel. That's to make sure you got the correct bevel, okay? The degrees of bevel. On the back, push this out here. This here, inches, millimeters. This is to determine the size of your throat thickness, okay? So that's the thickness of the weld. Turning it back around. If you were to have any problems with your weld or defect, the inspector might come along and he'll measure using these dimensions here how long of a defect it is and if it's acceptable. That's pretty much it for the welding gauge. Now let me show you how to use it. Watch how easy this is going to be. Now I'm going to show you how to measure the leg length of your weld. So the leg length of your weld is from the bottom of the plate to the top of the weld. Get your welding gauge flat on the plate, and as you can see the tip starting to come down. I measure in millimeters. So what you want to do is get a tip to go just at the top of the weld, right at the peak. As you can see up here, it's measuring at 11 millimeters. So we've got 11 millimeters leg length. So that's the size of the weld I've produced here. So going on, I wanted to talk about throat thickness. Now I'm going to make it really easy. Throat thickness is from the corner to the center of your weld, okay? That is the thickest part of your weld. So that's what you want to be measuring. Get your welding gauge. There's two flat spots, okay? One at the top, one at the bottom. You want to be getting it directly in the center if you can. I'm just going to put that down, sorry. And it's just measuring over 5 millimeters. So we got a 5 millimeter throat thickness. Okay, so that's how you measure that. Going on, I wanted to talk about bevels and how we measure a bevel. Right, let's show you how to measure a bevel. Flat on a plate. Start bringing the arm around until it slots in perfectly. If you look here, it's a 35 degree bevel. It's showing the dimensions right here. There's not a lot to it, is there? So, oi, make sure you're watching. There's going to be a test at the end. Right, are we focused now? So, going on to my next one is how to measure a V-butt weld. So, the height of the weld you've produced. In most cases, always follow your weld procedure, okay? The WPS, make sure you talk to the inspectors, because it could be an x-ray job, it could be a high stress point. But in most cases, okay, let me just show you quickly. If we use our gauge, our welding gauge, 0 is the plate. As long as it's over flush, in most cases, if it was just over 0, they will pass you, depending on all the other factors like I've just said. But if we want to measure this one, the one I've produced, it is just under 3 mil. So it's just under 3 mil off the top surface, and that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, so the next one I want to go on to now. How do we measure the width of the weld? Because the WPS or the specification of the job, it might state a certain size of weld, a certain width. So the back of our gauge, put that along the back, and that is measuring 15, just over 15 millimeters in width then. So that's how we measure a pipe weld. Now let's go on to if we did have a defect and how we'd measure that. So this is a perfect example. Now this is a V-butt I did when I was an apprentice. And if you look right here, there's a slight little dot, and what that is where I've not correctly fused into my stop-start. I haven't feathered back the stop-start enough, so where I've gone to go into my root again, it's not punched through correctly and it's not fused. But can you just imagine if it was a missed edge from, if you can imagine there was a missed edge from here up to here, what you'd do is you'd, from start to where it ends, you'd measure, and then you'd look back at the WPS, or you'd speak to the inspector and you'd say, look, this is how much I've got, is that acceptable? So that is pretty much how you use the backside of your welding gauge to see how long of a defect you have and if it's accepted. Thank you all for watching. Just so you know, there's no test. Just you watching this alone, you've passed the test. Thank you. So if you've enjoyed the video, like, subscribe and press the bell icon to stay up to date. Take care, stay tuned.